Radio Nanigans started in approximately 1953 under the auspices of Coca-Cola Company and the Department of Defense. Coca-Cola, in conjunction with the Department of Defense, decided that they were going to send a troop over to Europe, North Africa, Asia, every place that had a military base. So they held a contest in major cities that had a Coca-Cola bottling company. I auditioned for Cleveland. I won. He formed the troupe, Mr. Pete Lee, who was our director, at WJW broadcasting system, and everyone came and rehearsed there. The entire troupe. They were called the Nanigans. Nanigans because we were always clowning, having fun, and Pete thought that would be the best name for us. It was taken from shenanigans to the Nanigans. Mr. Woodruff, president of Coca-Cola, said that he wanted to see a Coke in every soldier's hands, no matter where they were throughout the entire world. So we were those representatives. Then Cleveland, Mayor Celebrez, in conjunction with that, gave us keys from the city of Cleveland to give to these various countries or cities that we went to. For example, he gave me a key from Cleveland to give to the mayor in Manila. I'll never forget that. That was sort of really exciting for us. And then we'd go to Europe, Asia, North Africa in the summertime, and we'd come back and go to school because some of us were still in high school. And every summer we would go back. I'd met several of the girls on the tour that played other instruments. And of course, my friend Georgine, her and I went to high school together at John Adams High. One of the other girls was Carol Schneider, and she went to St. Peter's. And there was Rosie Russo. We all would rehearse together each night after school. And I asked Pete, our director, I said, Pete, do you think you would give us an opportunity to be the backup band for all the other singers and dancers, troopers? And he said, well, Joann, you haven't had that much experience. I said, just give us a chance, please. And he did. So we rehearsed, we got strong enough that we became the Coquettes. And that was spelled Coquettes. When we turned professional, all we did was change the spelling, which was Coquettes. So we went again on to Europe and we backed everybody. By the last trip that was made, we got so strong that the Coquettes needed no other performers. We learned to be performers, and we went to every military base that they would send us, NCO clubs, and we would become goodwill ambassadors for Cleveland and the United States. We received medals of honor and accommodations from the Department of Defense. Well, we turned professional, and then we changed the name, got a manager. He recorded us, and it was a dub. They called them dubs at that time. And unbeknownst to us, he had picked up the phone and called Mitch Miller and played this dub to Mitch. Mitch says, I want those girls in New York within a week. When our manager told us, I said, you're kidding. No. Well, we went there, and sure enough, there was Mitch Miller. And Mitch Miller said to me, I'll never forget it. He said, Joann, how would you like to have Ray Conniff do your arrangement? And unbeknownst to me, I said, oh, well, I guess that'll be all right. I didn't know who Ray Conniff was. We were just kids from Cleveland. And the biggest thing that ever happened to us was playing polkas at a wedding or a bar mitzvah. Mitch liked us so well that he recorded us almost immediately. And we went on to do what they call promo of your recording. We traveled with Johnny Mathis, Leslie Uggams at that time. From there, we went on to preview our record, the new one that we had just recorded on the Ed Sullivan Show. Ed was very, very gracious. American Bandstand, Dick Clark, and that was big when you did that. Park show, Joey Bishop show. From there, we became performers in Nevada, working every major hotel. Our first appearance was at the Sands Hotel for a man called Jack Entrada. And I remember when we were in there, we were in the lounge. Lounge was packed. And every time we played something, people would just roar and applaud. And I thought, boy, we really made it now, only to find out that Sinatra had walked in the lounge and they were being very polite to us. We also did the Grand Ole Opry out of old Ryman Theater, and that was sponsored by Kitty Wells. At that time, then, we were doing one-nighters with Waylon Jennings, Roy Clark, Conway Twitty, Brenda Lee. We went on. Roy Drusky, who was a Grand Ole Opry star, approached me and he said, Joann, is it possible that you have any original material? And of course, I wanted to record. And I said, yes. He said, would you mind letting me hear this material tomorrow? And he gave me a place we went. But I did not have original material. But I thought this is an opportunity, and I just fled. I think I jumped off that balcony and went down where our dressing room was. And I said, Ruth, write a song. She said, what? I said, write a song. Roy Drusky wants to record us if we have original material. She says, what did I do? I said, well, Please Release Me is a big hit. I said, write the answer. She did. Within 10 minutes, we introduced the song to Roy Drusky the next morning, and a week later, we were back in recording, which he did. Roy did 2 albums for us, and we went on and kept on working, becoming better at entertainers. We worked the Sands, the Riviera, the Hacienda, the Golden Nugget, the Dunes, the Frontier, and I'm sure I've left something out, but you can blame that on my youth. We worked 3 different prisons. We worked San Quentin, Leavenworth Federal Pen, and Walla Walla. They liked it so much, they named that city twice, Walla Walla. You see who else was in the group at the time? Originally there was myself, Rosie Russo, Carol Schneider, and Georgine Nuzzo. And we all were in high school at that time. From there was Karen Chanda, and Karen's dad was chief of police in Cleveland, Ohio. And Sandy Smith, whom we got out of Indiana. Kathy Diamond, who was one of the original female Beatles, originally from Liverpool, England, but came to Canada and then to the United States. Arlene Brooks, who is from Seattle, Washington. Kathy Rule, and Kathy was Sacramento. Diane Miller was from Sacramento. There was Vicki and Ronnie Gossett, and they were from California. There was also Jan Grubish, who is still with us. And Jan was always what we call our little ray of sunshine. Terry O'Brien, Terry's mom and dad. Terry's father was the first Superman. And her mother was the very famous deadpan in the movies Virginia O'Brien. And then we had Patty Gerald. Patty Gerald was the mandolin champ of North Carolina. And Jane Morris. Jane was a Southern belle from Atlanta, Georgia, played beautiful drums. And then there was one other, and I kind of saved her for last. She did most of our arrangements. She did comedy. As a child, she was known as the sweetheart of the Berkshire Hills. Ruth could hear a bad note in a symphony. She wrote our arrangement, and she did the comedy. And Ruth, unfortunately, is no longer with us, but I know she's always with us. That's the way we always felt. We respected her and loved her very much. And again, there was also Sandy Smith, who was recognized as the world's greatest female drummer. And the first person that recognized her was Buddy Rich. I recall a time when we were working Harris Club in Lake Tahoe, and our dressing rooms were downstairs. We alternated acts. There was 6 acts on the bill, and Harry James was in the lounge, and we worked the hobbits with Harry James, and he had Buddy Rich, the world's greatest drummer. Can do more than one with one stick than most people can do with 10. We were going up steps. Buddy was coming down. Sandy had no idea at that time who Buddy Rich was. And as we passed Buddy and Buddy passed down, he looked at me and you and he said to Sandy, Sandy, you just play wonderful. He said, and not for a girl. And Sandy didn't acknowledge it, kept walking straight. She was frightened. And I said, Sandy, do you know who that was? She said, no. I said, that's Buddy Rich. And later on, Buddy did talk to Sandy. Could you tell them about that?
Well, he actually came and knocked on the dressing room door. Mm-hmm. And of course, I had some of my drums in there anyway. And I opened the door and I said, well, hi. And what can I help you? You know, and he said, no, I'm here to help you. And
he didn't mince words, did he?
No, he didn't. But he was really good. And of course, I used to sit and watch him when we weren't on stage because we alternated. And I just loved him and I thought he was the greatest ever, and he was.
But he doesn't normally pay compliments unless he really means them. And didn't he ask you to play his drums?
Yes. And actually, this is prior to me, even him coming up to the dressing room. He sent one of his guys, they used to take all their equipment off stage, say, because we had to come back on with a lot less equipment. And I said, you forgot Buddy's drums and stuff here. And the guy says to me, we didn't forget. He insisted that we leave them there and he wants you to play them. And I said, well, what if I broke his drum head or something? They said, it doesn't matter. You play this set of drums. And I said, okay, I'll do it. And of course I did, and I didn't break any drum head. And so then he'd knock on my dressing room door often just to show me something that he wanted me to do, how to do it, which way to, play, which was a great help. And that's how I ended up setting my setup, as you know, Joann, and
right.
It's history.
You talk about a performer, you talk about a great musician. Her name is Joni Slade Evans. She's still doing that. And she was from Moscow, Idaho. I think she still performs. She teaches. And this girl could hit a double high C. She's what they call a screecher on the trumpet. Excellent. Right next to me is a young lady who, talk about playing organ, look out. She'll rock your socks off or something like that. But Diane worked with us for many, many, many years and played every type of genre you can think of. Rock, soul.
James Brown.
Yeah, James. James Brown. Would you tell us a little bit about it, Diane? I'm sure people want to know.
Well, I was in the James Brown concerts when I was 12, 13, 14, watching my hero. And my brother used to take the blues records. Come listen to this. He's 7 years older than I am. So I was listening to blues from the age of 8. And then, my signature song. Oh, a happy day. Oh, happy day. Oh, a happy day. Oh, happy day. When Jesus washed, he washed my sins away.
Now that does my heart really good. We're going to have to do that more often, okay? But Diane, maybe you can explain to him how we met. maybe
Well,
they're not.
well, no, I'll do how I got started, and then I met you.
All right.
My father worked with Horace Heidt, and he did all of the arrangements for Horace Heidt Orchestra. So he wrote the notes for every type of instrument they had. And then I wasn't very enthusiastic about being a musician. It was not my thing. It was my dad's thing. But I had to practice. He made sure I practiced. And then, kids don't want to do this anymore. Well, he found a band. So I had to work on the weekends then, all through high school, and practice, with the band during the week. And then I went on the road when I finished high school and got out there in the world. And I was making a living. He gave me a trade. Even though it wasn't my idea, I had that trade. I moved to Vegas, and there was a lady there that had a band, and she let me sleep on the floor in her extra room for 2 years. So I slept there for 2 years. Didn't work, but I slept there for 2 years. And she fed me pinto beans and bear claws.
Bear claws. I'll take the bear claws.
Yeah, and that was what we ate for 2 years. So then her organ player she committed suicide. So all of a sudden I had a job, and I was getting paid then. And then she decided to get married, so she took me over to Joann's house. And I guess she knew Joann was, interviewing people to join her new group that she was forming, the Seven Faces of Eve. And so I had to audition, and I got the job. So I then began to work with Joann. And
Joann, I don't mean to interrupt you, but let's explain that. When we're talking about the Seven Faces of Eve, we've been in the industry quite a while, so we're trying to sort of upgrade or become more today, back in the day. And I decided maybe a name change might help flower the group a little more. And I couldn't think of a name, but I had watched a movie called Three Faces of Eve. And seeing that everybody in the group at that time had totally different personalities, different, different
attitudes
yeah.
and abilities.
Yeah. So I changed the name to the Seven Faces of Eve. And it worked for a while, but then for a while we went back to the Coquettes. Because so many people didn't know us, and we had a great deal of fans. Just to tell you that that's what happened when you mentioned the Seven Faces of Eve.
Oh, yeah.
So,
and I was going to say that I learned to like music when I started working in Las Vegas. It was a lot of fun. And then when I joined Joann's group, I loved it because you'd go to work and you didn't know what they were going to do. If we had a comedian, she was insane. And it was always fun to go to work. But then the thing I loved the most in my life was when I had my son Jason. And then he had my grandchildren, Gwen and Spencer. Then I was complete.
Right.
Yeah.
And as she mentioned, there are many of us who are no longer here. They're with us all the time because I think we think about them. I mean, where in the world can somebody get paid for what they like doing? They love doing. And Ruth was just a natural comedian. I wanted to go to work. I wanted to go to work. I loved going to work because all we did was play music and laugh. The proprietors are always very kind to us. They let us go and do as we will. But the group was extremely versatile. And this next young lady, I heard when she was with another group. And I said to Ruthie, we've got to hire that girl, something that we need. Sandy was with a group called Jody McCullough and the Country Cousins, who Jody is now in the Hall of Fame for country music. Sandy, tell them exactly what happened and what I wanted you to do. Would you do that?
I'm playing drums, and Joann wanted a bass player. The woman that I replaced was a lead singer, played banjo, guitar, bong, and bass. We're on the bass, and because the bass is what I was supposed to play, and I couldn't figure that out. I said, I play drums. Joann and Ruth were so confident. They know something I don't. I did join the group. It was a wonderful experience. I played hard when we first started, behind the curtain because I was scared to death. And out, but you couldn't see me because I was hidden. It was wonderful. We went everywhere, and we became a family.
I'll tell you one thing. When you sang "In the Pines," that country song, look out! I mean, people stood up and applauded. Sammy, you remember that?
In the pines, where the cold wind shivers and shines. I don't think it was shines, but I never did get the lyrics too well anyway.
There's a lot of these.
But it was a lot of fun.
Right. There's a lot of things we've forgotten.
Always like to talk about the fact that we were at the Union Plaza, minding our own business, playing our set, having a great time, and this guy came in, and he had kind of like a little bum look to him. He had on a hat and glasses and old clothes, and Ruthie was doing some comedy, and he leaned on the rail and he was laughing at her. And she said, "Oh, I see you got dressed up for the show today." And he said, "Nothing," he just laughed. And so she just kept it up, and she kept picking on him and picking on him. Well, it was Art Carney, and he was in character for the movie Harry and Tano. And so he got a hold of his producers and told them that they had to pay for the rights for Long Train Running, and we had to be in the movie. And that's what happened. We were in the movie.
The strangest part about it, Diane, is I kept getting this phone call that said 20th Century Fox, and I thought, okay, somebody is playing a joke on us. So I never did answer. They kept calling, so I put the phone, we got off late sometimes from work in the early mornings. So I took the telephone and I put it in the refrigerator. Long cord, put it in the refrigerator, said this way I can go to sleep and I'm not going to hear this. And the next day I went to work and our boss came up to me and said, "Joann, you in the 20th century, Fox wants to put you in a movie?" I said, "What?" He says, 20th Century Fox wants to put you in a movie. I said, "They've been calling my house. I put the phone in the refrigerator." I said, "I got to go home. I got to take that phone out of the refrigerator." But it was true. And then when we were doing it live, and that was a great thing, because when you do it live, you don't have time to edit, and there's no paste and etc. You better do it right the very first time. And I remember Art was sitting on the bar stool here, and he brought his little cat in. He was sitting here, and there was the bar, and here we are up on stage. And we'd start, that cat, every time he started to play the music, whoosh, off the stage, off the bar. And I looked at Ruth, I said, that cat better have 10 lives, because if I don't get in this movie because of that cat, it ain't going to have 9 lives. So, but they managed to correct it all, and it turned out great. And Art took an Academy Award for the film.
We're listening to a group called the Coquettes. They go back a few years, but we have one of them right here with us now.
Yes, you do.
You're the bass player.
I was the bass player, yes.
And you are
Georgine. Yes.
Georgine.
Mm-hmm.
And that's you in the back right here.
Right.
In the center.
And this is Rosalie Russo. She played a wailing saxophone.
Yeah. Wow.
Really good. And Joann Bongiorno, the leader of our group. And of course myself. And Carol Schneider.
And it looks like she plays the guitar.
Yes, she did.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And you all played instruments, which was sort of unusual for the girl groups back
That was different in those days. You had singers, but you didn't have singers and musicians.
Right. A couple of the male groups, or one or two, maybe played a couple of instruments, but you were really unique.
Yes, we were
among the groups.
Yes, and us starting out so early in age.
Like how young were you then?
Well, I had started with, I think it was 14, and I was rehearsing in a basement with a boys group. There was 3 or 4 boys, I don't even remember which. But anyway, Joann heard there's a girl bass player, so she wanted to see us or see me rather, she, without my knowing, because I didn't know Joann at all, but she heard about this bass player that was going to be rehearsing in, I think the name was Michael at the time, the leader of the group that I had joined, the boys group, and she saw me to see if I was any good.
And
she
I
thought,
guess you were. Huh?
I guess I was.
good enough to get started.
Yes, indeed. And
you were making hit records.
oh gosh,
This is one we heard part of one.
Columbia.
And you were the spoken part there at the beginning.
yes,
The soloist.
yes, and I rehearsed that and got it nailed,
Yeah,
as
well,
they say
I would
nowadays.
say so.
Or in the old days, they used to say, got it nailed.
And you recorded for Columbia Records. We're getting
Yes.
ahead of ourselves. So how did you get started? You're from here, from Cleveland.
Oh yes, we all were from Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
And
Marty Kahn, did he have something to do with it?
yes, Marty certainly did. He was our agent. We had been going overseas with Pete Lee. I don't know if you've all ever heard of Pete Lee. He was our director, and he would take us overseas to entertain the servicemen. Mm-hmm. That was when we were all in high schools yet. So when we all graduated, that's when Joann said, we're changing over to Marty Kahn.
Well, Marty finds talent.
Oh,
he always has.
That's what. Yeah, we found that out.
He's the man that
He
all the
kept
big
us
stars
working.
Started out with. He sort of
Yeah.
moved them into the business.
Oh yeah, and he always kept us working.
And how did you start? What was the first? I bet you remember the first job you had.
No, I don't.
Wasn't memorable, huh?
No. Well, like I said, starting as young teenagers, we had WJW radio, our own show that we had singers come on.
Now that's the station that Alan Free, the Moondog.
Yes.
Well, how did you hit the big time?
As we got closer to being senior teenagers and ready to graduate from high school, it just started rolling in there. We would be playing sock hops one day, and the next day you're 3 years older, 4 years older, and you're in nightclubs playing. Oh my goodness, yes. It was very exciting at that time.
Marty got you rolling along.
Oh, he sure did.
Now, at what point did you start performing out of town? Fairly early? I mean,
Well, no,
between here and New York.
Rosalie was the youngest, so we had to wait for Rosalie to graduate.
That's Rosalie right there.
Right there, yes. And we all had to graduate from high school, and that's when we were free, more or less, to go.
So she held you back for a little bit.
For about a year or two, yeah, before, because she's the youngest. We had to wait until we all graduated from high school, and then we're able to go from state to state and whatever club Marty would be booking us in, or TV shows.
How long did you travel around? How long was your active career?
You know, I don't remember anymore.
Just went on and on and on?
It just went on and on. I think I was 23 when I left the group, something like that. And
now, tell us how you got signed up with Columbia Records and who.
I don't remember.
You were telling us about Johnny Mathis.
Yeah, Johnny Mathis. We first came out. We had our cocktail.
And Ray Conniff conducted the band in recording.
And Johnny Mathis, we had our cocktail parties together for our first records out, with all the big Joes there at the time. And it was nice to go back and remember these things that I did it, they did it.
How you got started with the bass? Why did you pick the bass?
It wasn't me that picked the bass. It was my music teacher in junior high school. He says, what do you want to play? I says, well, guitar must be nice. You know, I always like guitar music. He said, because you had such a good
There's a little difference between a guitar and a bass.
He says, and we don't have guitars in the orchestra, so you're going to play bass. I said, but I don't want to play bass. It's big, you know. And he said, no, we need a bass player. We don't have one.
Yeah, you had to stand up through the whole concert.
Absolutely. So I, was in the orchestra, junior high, Nathan Hale Junior High. Yeah.
But see, that what made you so authentic. That's why.
I think so. I think so. And it lasted a long time, and it was a good career.
You had to travel with that thing, though, right?
Oh, not only me, but we traveled in a station wagon, had to pack the suitcases, had to pack and carry suitcases, had to pack the instruments, and of course this long bass hanging from the front seat over the back seat, into the back end, with all the suitcases under it, over it. And I used to think, boy, it would be nice to have a smaller instrument, like I wanted to begin with, a guitar. But
well, you can get the bass.
That's what that's what I did. Then I got the bass guitar.
We were fortunate. We got to see the world.
Yes, we did get to see the world, and I think it helped us personally within our own bodies and our own thinking to see all these different things. I'll never forget that time in Korea when we were in Korea driving. Well, we weren't driving. We were. I think we were being transported by bus at that time by the Army, and that old man.
Transferred by what they call deuce and a half. They were
Yes.
big, huge
Yeah, and they throw us up by the
trucks.
waistline. And
Right.
this here old man stepped on the hand of about a 2-year-old boy because they had no food in Korea. At that time, it was after the war. And he took that orange away from that little 2-year-old boy. And you remember how we used to throw food out from the bus windows and
I
everything?
was just going to say, we took our lunches and were throwing our lunches out the window.
Yes. Yes, we did. Yeah, and those people were
That
starving.
was the first time I've ever seen people starving.
Yes, that's true too, but didn't it give you an insight of what the rest of the world is like and how you should be to one another and kind to each other and help each other out?
Some of the awards we had was Medal of Esteem from the Department of Defense that was given to our group. This was given to us by Leavenworth Federal Penitentiary. I could maybe read it in appreciation for the work that we had done and the service we had given to the penitentiary. Here in Las Vegas, I went on to become a member of what we call the Nevada Silver-Haired Legislation. You must live in Nevada for 5 years, have to be a voting person and a certain age. I met those requirements, and one day there was a knock on my door, and a lady came in. It was Senator Woodhouse, and asked me if I wouldn't be available or volunteer to become part of this forum. And she said, I can't guarantee anything because I can nominate you, but it has to be approved by the Senate of Nevada and also our governor. And I said yes. And I went on from there, and I've been there 13 years now. I'm proud to say that one of the achievements I had there was a bill that we passed. It works very much like the Amber Alert, but this is for seniors who have some cognitive disease or dementia or frame of mind that go missing. We have to be very careful in this state because we have to be able to get those people back within 24 hours. If we don't, it's not a pleasant thing when we find them. You know, they don't have their medication, they don't have water, they're out in the desert and oftentimes abused. We got that passed, and it's called a Silver Alert. And I was very proud of that and proud of the forum that I sit on. I'm still with them, and we're still working on things for seniors. I've also been nominated in the Hall of Fame Women Diversity with UNLV, and the best fun of all was the Antiques Roadshow that came here. There were 8,000 people there that day, long line, and a lady came by and she said, please get your stuff all together. You only have 3 minutes with the appraiser, and we have to get everybody in and out. So I was so excited, I had all this memorabilia in my hands, and of course this is a little hat. And I thought to myself, well, what am I gonna do? So I took the hat, put it on my head like this. And lo and behold, it wasn't, I bet you 30 seconds later, they pulled me out of line, put me in the green room and said, we would like to have you on the Antiques Roadshow. And I was on the Antiques Roadshow and as happy as could be because here they were again, back in show business, lights on, curtain up, putting my makeup on and everything. And the lady knew more about the Coquettes and what the Nanigans had done throughout the world than I did. She was from Sotheby's, and she said, knew about these sweaters, but I've never seen one. She never saw the pin. She never saw the hat. And I was so proud. The Nanigans started in 1954 in Cleveland, Ohio. It was a concept of a gentleman by the name of Pete Lee. He was affiliated with WJW, Store Broadcasting Company, and he managed to get Coca-Cola to sponsor us. The Coquettes were a segment within the Nanigans. Basically the backup groups, we sang vocals, and we did comedy. We got to go all over the world through Coca-Cola.
Now, where'd you take Nanigans from?
Well, in the studios, we were always cutting up, and he was trying to contain us. He says, so now I've got the name from Shenanigans, we'll call you the Nanigans. And we toured all through Europe and through Asia, performing for both youth hostels and for NCO clubs, officers clubs. We have 4 albums. We did 2 movies.
When you were in Korea, though, this was not simple stuff.
When they sent us to Korea, of course, it was a new experience for us. And I remember going into the NCO club to perform, and then they had monsoon season. And when we came out, the GIs had to carry us, which was exciting because the mud was so very thick. We traveled in what they called deuce and a halves. We were allowed 1 dress. And the rest of the time we had to wear combat boots and fatigues.
Well, so let me tell you a little bit about what you've brought us in terms of a collector's point of view. First of all, Coca-Cola is one of the biggest advertisers in the world, and in World War II alone, they put in 64 bottling plants in Europe. Robert Woodruff, their president, stated that every GI that was over there in World War II would be able to buy a bottle of Coke for 5 cents wherever he was, whatever the cost to the company. It was a twofold purpose. It was patriotic, and at the second time, they could keep their branding. Because how could they resist a group like the Nanigans wearing those great Coca-Cola hats?
And our hats, right?
I've rarely seen these Nanigans sweaters. I've never seen the hat. I've never seen the pin. If you were looking at all of this as a group, you know, strictly from a collecting point of view, I would guess that a collector would probably pay somewhere between $1,500 and $2,500 for all of it.
I think I would prefer probably to donate them to a museum or somewhere where everybody can view them after I'm gone.
Well, yeah, and your memories are priceless, right?
Priceless. Just got a thrill from that. I still to this day thank the Antiques Roadshow because that was such a pleasure. And I'd like to thank WJW. They helped me. They gave us a start. They gave many people a start because some of the people that were with us went on to greater things, like Carl Maduri from Cleveland, Ohio, won a Grammy because he produced Maureen McGovern and The Morning After. Nicky DiCaro, who worked with us. And Nicky was one of the finest arrangers, did arrangements for Barbra Streisand. He had a couple hits, Midnight at the Oasis, Hold Me, Thrill Me. Frankie DiCaro was with the Baja Marimba Band. It goes on and on and on. And the one thing I never forgot, in my roots, in Cleveland, Ohio. I thank WJW. I want to thank the Department of Defense. I want to thank Coca-Cola, and most of all, I want to thank my parents who gave me every opportunity there was to become a success. They never told me how much they cared or loved me, but they bragged to everyone else. I knew it, I felt it. I love them, I thank them, and I hope they're still watching right now. Thank you.
You're nobody till somebody loves you. Thank you. You're nobody till somebody cares. Getting a little over every year, Shirley. You may be a king, and you may possess this world and its gold. Gold won't buy you happiness when you're growing old. Yes, this world, it's just the same. Will never, 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 never change it. As sure as the stars, they shine up above. When you're nobody till somebody really loves you. So go on out, find yourself somebody to love. Yes, you're nobody till somebody really, really loves you. You know what I mean? And you're nobody till that somebody cares. Now you may be a king, honey, you may possess this whole world. A lot of ten goodies. Let me tell you, those goodies won't buy you happiness. And people think you when you're growing. Yes, this world, it's just the same. We'll never change it. As sure as a star, they shine up above. No, nobody, till somebody really loves you. So come on out, find yourself somebody to love. Lord, and then we might be somebody.
Winter, summer, spring, or fall.